What is going on, guys? My name is MrDalekJD, and in this video, we are taking a deep dive into a big mystery in Black Ops 4 Zombies. A mystery you've definitely forgotten about, but in Alpha Omega, a few more can of worms have been opened in this topic. And today, we're talking about Richtofen. Specifically, Primus Richtofen. Something that just does not add up in the story. One of my initial thoughts is that this Richtofen is being manipulated by the Shadowman. We're going to explore all avenues in this video, bring up some story info that has never been heard before. But I must heavily remind you that this is a theory. It might not be 100% accurate. It's built upon things Treyarch are throwing in our faces right now. Just before we get started, if you have any theories or ideas about this, please let me know in the comments section. And if you enjoyed today's video, a like would be super appreciated. The recent support on my videos have been absolutely amazing. I can't thank you guys enough for it. Now set your mind back to the Blood of the Dead intro cinematic. And the moment our characters get there, everything is off. They're stuck behind a wall instead of teleported straight into the lab. The Richtofen that they meet there is frantic, angry, and almost aggressive towards our crew. Now in the original Primus timeline, this Richtofen that we see from a much earlier version of the timeline, who has not yet gone to Morgue City to retrieve the summoning key, nor has he jumped to dimension 2210 to acquire an innocent Richtofen soul, and also doesn't possess any blood vials, for leaving in a portal very similar to the ones that our characters leave at the end of the Easter egg. He completely leaves the Alcatraz dimension, but this clearly doesn't seem to be the early version of Richtofen that we assumed he was in the Primus cycle. At the end of Blood, Richtofen realizes what the Chronorium meant and that the machine was intended to draw his blood, and steps inside, sacrificing himself to free the others. The remainder of the Primus members and the original Dimension 63 Richtofen leave the new Richtofen alone and scared, the machine continuing to draw his blood. And we leave that Richtofen there and then. So who the hell is this Richtofen that we're playing with in Alpha Omega? And that's what we're going to be exploring in today's video. The mystery, because I believe that there is far more to it than meets the eye. We're going to work this out through the secret conversations that Primus have with each other during the game. The basic framework with the idea that the Shadowman is manipulating Richtofen in Alpha Omega is the fact that the Shadowman is the sole reason the cycle was broken. The Shadowman and the Apothecans were trapped inside the Alcatraz dimension, and the only way to escape was through the power of Edward Richtofen's blood. As his travels through countless realities of space and time has made his blood not only beyond potent, but a profound liability, where forces would stop at nothing to attain such power. The whole purpose of Blood of the Dead was to trap the Primus crew, and their only escape would be to be sacrificing Richtofen's blood. In the process of saving the Primus crew, the Shadowman also harnessed Richtofen's blood power as an exit through the gateways and out into the other dimensions. One huge detail is that we have the summoning key and the Shadowman is still trapped inside. So whilst we are working behind Dr. Monty's back to overthrow him, the Shadowman is also looming in the background. With the foundations laid down, let's talk about this specific version of Richtofen in Alpha Omega. Let's start with a conversation between Dempsey and Richtofen, where this version of Richtofen confirms that he isn't the Blood of the Dead one. As we can all tell on Alcatraz, Richtofen was acting very different to usual. He was scared. That is very unusual behavior. He always knows what he's doing.
We fought our way out of a literal Hellcatraz, Richtofen, where you looked scared shitless for the first time. Question is, why?
He'd gotten a few things wrong, that's all. Silly old me. Too emotional. Anyway, I had to step in.
Something's off with you, Richtofen. More than usual. But I'm damned if I can remember what it is.
Well, don't look at me for answers. I've officially washed my hands of trying to do the right thing. We're all in the culpable hands of Nikolai. Big round of applause, please.
So from that conversation alone, you can get a weird feel that this Richtofen is very different to the normal Primus timeline Richtofen and even the Primus Richtofen in Blood of the Dead. He mentions that the other Richtofen done a few things wrong and that he had to step in. But Dempsey still has his suspicions. Now something interesting we learned from this, and you'll hear with the other character conversation, is between the events of Blood of the Dead and Alpha Omega, Dempsey Takeo and Nikolai struggle to remember what actually happened. Due to the 115-induced delusions they have every time they travel, they have partially forgotten that Richtofen even died in Blood of the Dead. As you hear in the conversation, this Richtofen just brushes it aside. But why would he brush it aside? It starts to get a little suspicious. Now, this next point is the first thing that hit me in my head with regards to the Shadowman's influence on this Richtofen in Alpha Omega. This is all because of Takeo. Now, in Black Ops 3 The Giant, we hear a plethora of radios from our premise crew, much further points in a cycle than we have ever experienced. One in particular is of Takeo, who is talking to another version of himself. He fully understands that there are other versions of himself, that he's speaking to a reflection of himself. He is troubled because his dreams are haunted by a man in shadow.
Haunted by visions and voices, you clung to the most simple of motives. You had purpose, but then he took it all away.
He fears this vision may be a portent of our destruction. So from that, we know that Takeo has some hindsight-like ability which we don't fully understand. This conversation between him and Dempsey fully outlines the suspicion with Richtofen in this map and confirms that there are some unseen forces at play, i.e. the Shadowman. Take a listen.
There's a lot at stake here, Tak. Especially with another Richtofen in the mix.
Another Richtofen indeed. Can we be sure that Ida is the one who led us to deliver our souls to the summoning key?
Now you mention it, my memories of getting out of that prison are pretty hazy.
There may be forces at play that have not yet made themselves known. We should be wary. Really wary.
What is even more suspicious is this conversation between Nikolai and Richtofen, where Nikolai comments that whilst he can see his own past and future, the book doesn't tell him about Richtofen's.
Though Chronorium showed me all of my past and future, it did not tell me everything of yours.
Yeah, quite the head-scratcher, isn't it, Nikolai? Just wait until you start wrestling with the unpredictabilities of free will.
I am aware of complications, but I will not waver from this path. There will be no more cheating, no more deceit, Richtofen.
Certainly not from me, Nikolai. I've been around the block far too many times to try and wriggle out of our big finale now.
So this conversation is interesting because Richtofen brings up the concept of free will, how the unpredictability of your own free will can sometimes be such a spanner in the works that the Chronorium is unable to change its pages to replicate that action. And the unpredictability of this Richtofen's behavior is so sporadic that Chronorium can't predict it, which is really peculiar seeing as the Chronorium is one of the most powerful artifacts in the world. Further enhances my point that this Richtofen is a real mystery. We've gotten this far on the video and there is a lot more interesting stuff to come. This Richtofen is also wearing blood vials. A very strange, abnormal thing for this Richtofen to have because none of the other premise crews have their blood vials because they were destroyed at Alcatraz because the cycle is broken and the blood is no longer needed. The blood is the sole reason why the cycle can continue. So why on earth this Richtofen possesses blood vials is an absolute mystery. I'm going to leave that till the end of the video. This next conversation involves Takeo and Richtofen, where he makes subtle remarks about Takeo's memory that again is another deflection of what happened in Alcatraz.
You no longer have the fire in your eyes that I saw in the castle, or even the island. A new dawn, a fresh start, a chance, perhaps, to finally undo the sins of the past. To help our souls find peace.
Those were deeply soulful words, Takeo, which is particularly impressive given that your soul is currently MIA. Sorry, too soon.
The book told us what we must do. Secure the elemental shard. This I remember clearly. It will be the next step of an unknown walk.
Glad to hear that, Takeo. Nothing worse than being forgetful. And we all know how easily that can happen in our situation.
Tread carefully, allies. I believe there is much more to this make-believe facility than meets the eye.
I think it looks very boring. Just think of the exciting places I used to take you. You love that castle, Takeo. Obviously, the Division 9 thing didn't help with the homesickness quite the way I hoped it would. I think Nikolai's going to do a splendid job, don't you, Takeo?
Why do I think you are avoiding certain subjects, Richtofen?
Ha! What could I possibly be avoiding, Takeo? I've been so transparent lately, I'm practically invisible.
That remains to be seen. When we were in the prison, you were fearful. Fearful of what you thought was to come.
Why are we even talking about this, Takeo? It all worked out perfectly. We beat the warden and escaped our seemingly eternal purgatory. Yay!
That is not what I remember, Richtofen. Something in your story does not add up.
Goodness me, Takeo, you're very paranoid. Next thing you'll be asking me about blood vials. Never mind my ramblings, Takeo. I get confused sometimes. There's so much to do. A vessel for Maxis, the opening of the gateway. 9! I am getting confused!
Damn these 115 induced delusions.
Now, I don't know about you, but I'm starting to get really suspicious of this version of Richtofen from those quotes alone. Just like I mentioned earlier, he's deflecting questions that the crew are having about the ending of Blood of the Dead. Surely an event as big as Richtofen sacrificing himself, why would he want to hide that fact? And this Richtofen explained that everything happened perfectly. They defeated the warden and escaped the eternal purgatory. Yay. Now you gotta remember, it wasn't just these characters that escaped that purgatory, it was also the Shadowman and the Apothecans. And the fact that Richtofen sounds so enthusiastic about it just doesn't add up. And especially right at the end with this.
There's so much to do. A vessel for Maxis, the opening of the gateway. 9! I am getting confused!
We usually heard this every time we traveled to a new location in Black Ops 3 as a reminder of the mission, when Richtofen was the leader and following the Chronorium, but this doesn't have to happen anymore, but yet he's still saying it, and in the most sarcastic tone, like as if this Richtofen is a complete fake. Very, very peculiar. As I mentioned earlier in the video, Takeo definitely feels there are unseen forces at play here, and Dempsey is also suspicious of Richtofen. This next conversation confirms that Nikolai is also suspicious of Richtofen.
Nikolai, I know you are unlikely to explain any further than Richtofen ever did. But please, tell me how these other...
Other us, Takeo? The other versions of us? They are very much part of our destiny.
I am wary of what trouble two Richtofens could spell. It feels very much like a double jeopardy.
I know what you mean, Takeo. But you have to believe me when I say that I am watching them both very closely.
So some very interesting stuff there. Rounding up everything so far, this premise version of Richtofen is clearly acting out of character and trying too hard to fit in as the normal premise Richtofen. Neither of the three premise crew remember exactly what happened between the ending of Blood of the Dead and them entering Alpha Omega. They do not remember Richtofen's death, which is very sad because in the ending of Blood of the Dead, he even mentions that you won't remember me. Right as our three premise members left with the post-Revelations Richtofen. This Richtofen clearly isn't post-Revelations Richtofen because he possesses blood vials and he does not in any way seem as confident and headstrong as that post-Revelations Richtofen. And as covered right at the start of the video, the entirety of Blood of the Dead was set up as a trap for Richtofen to walk right into, trapping the rest of the premise crew, and the only way for them to escape was through the power of his blood, which also was the same way that the Apothecans and the Shadowman were able to exit that dimension. And up until now, it seems that everything that's happened in Alpha Omega has been clearly pointed towards defeating Dr. Monty. There has been absolutely no mention of the Shadowman whatsoever in this map, and there is no way this is going to end being a very clear-cut ending focused solely on Dr. Monty, because that would be way too easy, and there are several things we have forgotten about in the background, like the Shadowman being released from Alcatraz and also still in the summoning key along with Takeo's soul and Dempsey's soul. Need I remind you that there are not one, but two Richtofens involved in this crew now. We have the weird, fake, phony Primus Richtofen, and also the post-moon Ultimus Richtofen, which, may I remind you, was corrupted by the forces in the Ether and Argatha, which is directly the Shadowman. And both of those Richtofens are here right now. It's clear that this Richtofen in our crew is a phony and a fake Richtofen, plucked from a dimension, a cycle which we don't know of yet, but to what seems to me at least be corrupted by the Shadowman, to get himself in a front row seat to the finale and cause a huge plot twist to what seems to be a very clear-cut and simple direction to the ending. And may I also remind you of this quote from the Shadowman in Revelations.
You do know that Richtofen is a friend of mine. I say friend, but really he's so much more than that. At one point, I almost considered him my apprentice. I mean, he did stab my reporter friend and steal the summoning key. But at one point, he did everything I told him to. I keep hoping he'll remember the promise he made to me so long ago.
Now, a quick assumption to make from this is that, oh, this is referring to the Ultimus version of Richtofen, and the moment that he touched the MPD, he was corrupted by the Shadowman, hearing his voices in his head, and that's why he interprets him as his apprentice. But what if this quote was foreshadowing what's happening in Alpha Omega instead, and how Richtofen is his apprentice, with this version bringing the Shadowman all the way to the ending in the summoning key. There was the plot twist once with the Shadowman in the key, it can definitely happen again. But I'm going to throw it over to you guys to let me know what you think of this idea in the comment section below, if you have any other ideas or arguments against this theory being at all credible. Before I finish, I just want to give a huge thank you and big credit to a YouTube user called Talam, who went ahead and recorded all of these conversations in-game pretty much since the map's released. And since only two characters speak to each other within a game, guessing these combinations of characters and getting them to talk to each other is a huge quest. So do me a favor, go ahead and check out his channel, link down below in the description, and comment on his most recent video just saying thank you. And you can find even more conversations which I've not included in this video in his link down below. But thank you ultimately for watching. Your support on my videos recently have been absolutely exhilarating. As someone who's been making zombie videos for over 10 years now, it is just absolutely amazing to see so much support on these videos with the likes, the views, the comments. Clearly I'm doing something right and you guys are enjoying the content, so all I can tell you to do is to just stay around and keep watching because we have a lot more awesome things to come. But thank you for making it all the way through. Feel free to leave a like rating on your way out if you enjoyed, and you can check out my last video on your screen right now. But thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.